Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm Sally Baker from Family Connection of South Carolina. I am our Director of Education and Family Support here. And today we have Chris Napier with us from the South Carolina Department of Education. He works in the Office of Special Education Services as an Education Associate. And he's going to hang out today with us and talk to us a little bit about what happens after high school and navigating services to ensure future success. So he's got some information for you guys and some questions that we pulled together. And then we'll let Chris kind of start and we'll ask questions as we need to.
Thank you, Miss Sally. I'll go ahead and share my screen and get this started. And you guys feel free to interrupt me at any time that I can. There we go. Anytime I can get this going. And I can't, the only person I can see is Sally, which is not a bad thing, but that's the only person I can see. So Sally, do like wave your arms or something if somebody's got a question so I can help. But and I am not Ellen Weaver. That is our state superintendent, but that is the template they have us use here at the Department of Ed as we present through this. But we're going to share today's objectives. Great quote. Heard this a bunch of different times throughout my life, but when we work as a team, it helps us divide the task and multiply the success. And that is our main objective today. And then our three little mini objectives, we want to discover opportunities and alignment for collaboration. Answer today's questions. There's 4 questions that Sally and the great people at Family Connections South Carolina put together. And then the most important thing I'm excited about is sharing some actual resources that you guys can put some action to these steps. So like I said, there's my name, my phone number, and my email contact. And if anybody needs to get a hold of me, please feel free to get a hold of Sally. She knows how to grab me. And we'll definitely, just so everybody knows, we will be sharing this with Sally so she can get this PowerPoint out to whoever needs it. All right, so this isn't all about me. I want to know a little bit about you guys. Where are you right now on your journey? So, are you number one? My man, Chris Farley there, it's like, I don't even know what's going on right now when it comes to post-secondary outcomes for my child or who these people I'm working with, or are you on number 2 where you feel like you got, some ideas, but you're kind of like in the manic planning stages of things and you need more information? Or number 3, and we're going to tell in some ages. I know Sally and I are close to the same age. So if you're younger, that is a cassette tape, just in case anybody didn't know. If you don't remember the 80s or 90s, but that is a cassette tape. And even though it has everything you need to listen and get rocking out, it seems a little discombobulated. Everything's kind of pulled out. You have information, but you just got to kind of align it. So if you could put in the chat where you're a number 1, a number 2, or a number 3, and you don't have to yell it out loud. You can if you want to. It doesn't bother me any. But just it seems like no matter what I do in life, it's one of those 3 for me. And if you ask my wife, I'm probably number 1 most of the time, but that's okay. A little bit about my journey. I think it's important to share everybody's story a little bit so everybody knows where they come from. Yes, that is me in the bottom right-hand corner. I was born and raised in West Virginia. Family comes from Logan, West Virginia, Wayne, West Virginia, and then we moved up towards Huntington. But that is the house that my dad actually grew up in. My grandparents lived there. A lot of great love and memories at that place. But as you can tell, it is definitely not a mansion on a hill. It's a house on a holler. So, but with that said, my dad was the first person in my family to ever graduate high school. I was go to college, and I'm going to speak it into existence. My sons, who are 10 and 7 years old, will be the first ones to graduate high school on their mom's side. So I'm going to speak that into existence, but I just share that to know that, we all, for everybody, it doesn't matter who you are, what path you're on. People have challenges growing up. I started off doing HVAC through CTE, career technical education. My grandma told me they marry handy or handsome. So son, you better learn how to swing a hammer. So I did that. And then I became a teacher's aide and I coached football because I wanted to go to college. I did 100 different odd jobs, all the way from working at pizza places to you name it. You can imagine it. I worked at amusement parks, whatnot. Then I became a substitute teacher. Once I graduated college, became a teacher, got a full-time contract, worked at a SEA, which is a state education agency. I've worked at 2 of those, one in West Virginia, one in South Carolina. And I don't know what I want to do next. I'm not done growing up yet. So Still holding out that I could grow up to be a cowboy one day. That was my goal when I was 6, but we'll see what happens on my journey. Another thing I like to share, and by no, Maslow was much smarter and educated, more educated than I am, but I always like sharing this picture because, Maslow, he has his 5 hierarchies of need there. But what I have found, and many of you may agree, when it comes to post-secondary outcomes and in your students or your children or whoever you're entrusted with here, it really comes down to, can I survive? Do I feel significant? If one of those things come off of a Napier's seesaw there, that's what I'll name that thing. It goes out of balance. It's one's up, one's down. But and I think when it comes to post-secondary outcomes, it's just my personal opinion. As long as we can make students realize that there's some survival going to be on there, we're safe, we've got all of our needs met, we can help, and they feel significant in that, then things tend to balance out. We can really start getting the opinion of the person that matters the most, which is the student. Real quick story before I continue. My son, he's in 2nd grade. I love a 2nd grade teacher. And he hurt his arm, so I had to drop something off for him. And I was walking and taking him to the classroom, and I was teasing with him. And I said, I'm going to find out if your teacher likes you or not. And he stopped me dead in my tracks and he says, oh, my teacher, she doesn't like me. And I thought, what in the world are you talking about? He said, she tells us every day she loves us. And I thought, wow, that is an awesome quote. So, obviously she likes him, but a lot of our teachers, I know every teacher can be different, but a lot of our teachers, they don't just like your kids or students. They love your students. They love your kids. So he definitely feels significant in that classroom. All right. So now we get down to the nitty gritty things, the real questions at hand. At times we can talk about general education versus special education. Where do people fall in on this? Just some notes for you guys. In South Carolina, most of the students with disabilities, 64%, are in the general education classroom 80% or more of the day. That number goes up to 82%, I believe, if you look at 40% or more of the day. So a lot of our students are in the general ed classroom. The reason I share that is, and we're going to get into IDA specific questions, but there is a lot of crossover between, and we love to use acronyms in education. There's a lot of crossover in ESSA legislation, IDEA legislation, Perkins 5, which is that CTE. There's a lot of talks about students with disabilities in there. And then WIOA, which is the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, which deals a lot with adult education and also the voc rehab, which you're going to hear about today, South Carolina Voc Rehab Department. And we have some South Carolina state regs in education that also talk about some post-secondary things. But I just want to share that because, it's not just special ed isn't just a place, right? We don't just send them to special ed. And we tell gen ed this all the time, and they agree with us. I could brag a bunch about our gen ed and our CT programs and how they work with our students, but we can't intervene our way out of a tier 1 situation, which tier 1 is there in gen ed most of the time. So it takes a collaboration. It takes a whole team together. And I want to emphasize this, and you're going to see this on some of the questions. A lot of this is with the IEP team. The IEP team involves many people. Parents are included on the IEP team. You are a part of the IEP team. It's not like it's you versus the school. It's everybody for the student. So you're part of that team. You're collectively making decisions and agreements. So I just always like to share that as well. So we will get on our first question. And this one, I hope everybody stays awake for, because I promise you questions 2, 3, and 4 are way more fun than this. So don't be mad at me, be mad at Sally. But what does IDEA say about agency involvement in the post-secondary transition process? Well, and this is why we have a PowerPoint today, because it gets a little wordy. But if you look at 300.43, it defines what transition services are. Transition services is a means of a coordinated set of activities for a child with a disability that, and then you can read through these things. I'm not going to insult anybody. It'll be on the slides. But you see that it's for improving academic and functional achievement to facilitate the child's movement from school to post-secondary activities. And it lists some things in there about what that is: post-secondary education, vocational educational, integrated employment, that's the support of employment, Continuing on to adult ed, if that is deemed appropriate, adult services. The big one, independent living, right? Independent living skills or community participation. And then number 2, it's based on the individual child's needs, taking into account the child's strengths, preferences, interests. And that includes some things down there at the bottom that you can see, but please remember number 2 as we work through these other questions, because it's based on the individual child's needs. And there's evidence that goes into that. And the most important evidence is we have to involve the student. It involves their interests. So there's different things that you're going to see today that I think are going to get us on the right path. The little part 2 to this, in IDEA, because it specifically asked what is the agency's involvement in this. Every state education agency has to put forth a state plan. That's found in, I'm going to get real technical here, 34C.F.R. I don't know what that symbol is. They didn't teach us that in school. 300.101 through 300.176. And it's basically the eligibility for assistance, which states that we have to have a state plan. That's basically all it tells you, that if we're receiving funding under Part B of the Act of IDEA for the fiscal year, we have to submit a state plan that gives assurances to the Secretary of State that we are meeting basically our state plan listed 101 through 176 of IDEA. Now, how does that relate to post-secondary education transition? If you look at point 107, and there's different points I could have put on here, but I was trying to put the main ones because there's different things that you can interpret different ways. But the big one is non-academic services, right? So each public agency must take steps, including the provisions of supplementary aids and services determined appropriate and necessary by the child's IEP team, which parents are a part of, about non-academic activities. Right. And I've highlighted the ones that are big. This is where South Carolina Voc Rehab Department can come in. This kind of talks about our relationship with them. They're our cousins. But referrals to agencies that provide assistance to individuals with disabilities and employment of students, including both employment by the public agency and assistance in making outside employment available. So they're trying to help you with those post-secondary transitions from school into the world of work. Okay, so that was the legal, that I will no longer be Christopher. I'll go back to Chris now, because that was all the legal from the top stuff. And don't forget, once again, there's parts in ESSA that talks about this and how IDEA relates to ESSA. It's specifically mentioned in Perkins 5, which is CTE, talks about students with disabilities under the special POPS categories. And then, of course, WIOA, which talks really, I mean, it does talk about pre-ed services, talking about students, but going into adulthood and how agencies can help students or individuals with disabilities, for that matter, with workforce information. But questions 2 and 3, describe what one would see when schools and agencies collaborate in the post-secondary transition process. And this is question number 3. Likewise, what types of services are provided for students as they are transitioning from school and college to a career? So the first part of that question, or I guess that question number 2, and this is not a cop-out, and I promise you it's not a cop-out. I'm going to back up on this too, because you're going to get a better answer on number 4. It is, I would not be giving you correct information if I would give you an exact example. It is so different case to case. It really comes down to that IEP team. What it would look like for one student may be totally different for another student. Now, I will tell you this, at the Office of Special Ed Services, we do monitor what they call Indicator 13. That is a determination that is listed out in IDEA that talks about the compliance of the IEP as it relates to transition services. So there's a checklist there. We make sure that they're using assessments, appropriate assessments. When looking at the interest of students, we make sure that they are linking it to academics, and we're making sure that the correct referrals have been made. And if they think that Voc Rehab should be there, were they invited to the meeting? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean they attended, but they got prior written notice and things like that to make sure that the parents wanted you to invite those people to the meeting. So there's different things in the IEP that does go into transition services. So I just wanted to say that we do monitor that in our office. It's called Indicator 13, and we work with school districts who may have not done it as well as others, and how they can improve that. But necessarily because it's not just in the IEP doesn't mean that great services didn't occur. It's just they should be putting that information in the IEP, because the IEP is what helps drives the whole thing in OSIS, just so you all know that. But what types of services are provided for students as they are transitioning from school to college? Once again, that depends on what the transition goal is for that student. Some of our students will work very closely with voc rehab. Some of our students won't want to work at all with voc rehab. They turn 18, they don't want to work with them. And of course, that employment, how they're doing that employment, what kind of courses they're taking, what kind of skills they're trying to develop, it depends on what that student wants to do too. For example, if we have a student that wants to be a welder, and they have shown, we have evidence that they can absolutely do that, and we're putting them in a CTE course to be a nurse, or we're putting them into something that has nothing to do with related to welding, that is, yes, we put them into CTE, but it wasn't related to what that student's goal was, especially if we have evidence that is appropriate placement. So, it could look different for every student. What they work on in the classroom could look different. There may be some students that are learning how to read a tape measure, right? Like me, I had to get handy. I'm not very handsome. I had to get handy, right? So they could be learning how to read a tape measure, where that might not be even appropriate for another student, because they don't want to do anything in a field that involves a tape measure. So it just depends on what that is for the student. But I do have good news as we skip to question number 4. If everybody remembers the cassette reference earlier, everybody can see here that the cassette tapes all wound back up, ready to rock, put in your boom box. That's another shout out, or your Walkman, to listen to and rock out, whatever your favorite artist was back then. But here's the pencils. I know you all remember you had to stick the pencil in the cassette tape and wind it up a little bit, right? You had all the information, you have to wind it up. So I'm going to share some information for you that you can put specifically for your child or the student you're working with on how to help and do that. Because I'm a big part, like, once again, I was an aide, I was a sub, I was a teacher. I've been in the classroom, I've been in the trenches. I always wanted resources that I could use and fit into my classroom and work with my students. So we're going to give you all the pencils today. The first one is a shout out to South Carolina Teams, SC Teams. That is a technical assistant network that involves Task, Ask, Bask, and Skippy. And then we have our partners as well. Family Connections is one of our partners in this process, but it's basically, how do we get these premier technical assistance centers and networks and groups to work with our school district, so we're getting what we need to those students. And because this is post-secondary, I am really trying to share out Task today. And obviously Family Connections, you guys are connected with them, but Task is a great resource, and we'll share them here in a minute. But this is something that is provided by SC Do. I'm going to try to click on the link. If it doesn't work, I'll have to reshare a different one. I know I'm going to have to do it. You all can't see it, can you? Can you see it, Sally? Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. I got to reshare here. I got to do a new share. One day I'll figure this out. Is it on there now? All right, perfect. Okay, so what this is list the community profile. So this shows you the employment information on where you live in South Carolina. We know, and it's not just students with disabilities, the majority of people do not move, majority of the time, 30 miles away from where they graduated. Now, that's not true for everybody. I just told you I'm from West Virginia, but most people come back to where they graduated within 30 miles of that. So I'm going to pick a random, I'm going to pick Newberry. I'm just going to pick it. So if you click on Newberry, it's going to show you all the industry information. It shows you unemployment rates inside of Newberry, inside of South Carolina. It shows you the percentage of that. It shows you how many jobs are opened up in your area. I know it's a little data number stuff, but it's still important, because when you get down here to the bottom, it shows you the 20 largest employers inside of your county. This is a great place. I would start with these 20, depending on what your student wants to do or what your child wants to do. But this is just a good resource because it's showing you the 20 largest people where you live at. So, I mean, the odds of getting hired there go up, and you can start looking at jobs that are in those areas. If transportation's a barrier or long commuting is a barrier, that's a good place to start. It also shows you the employment by industry. So how many people are being hired inside of those types of industry. These are linked to the 16 career clusters that we use in South Carolina. So you can tell if I have a student or a child that lives in Newberry, I'm looking at some jobs involving manufacturing because I'm playing the odds here. Now you might say my child doesn't want to do manufacturing, and that's okay but it's just showing you the real numbers, because at the end of the day, the employers are the ones that hire the children and the students, and you and I for that matter. So it's just showing you the numbers that are involved. And then down here, it shows you the top 20 occupational openings. So these are the openings. This one's pretty recent from January. They do these quarterly. So it's showing you where most of the openings are at. So this this isn't an opinion of anybody. This isn't anybody telling you that your child or your student can't do anything. It's just showing you what's available where you live, or if you know you're moving somewhere else, you can still look at that, and it just shows you the jobs that are available there. So I will now pull up my screen again, because I'm about to show you even something better. Sorry. Let me see here. Are we back on it? Are we back on the PowerPoint? Good deal. Okay. So, okay. This is the meat and taters where I come from. We call it that. 2 great helpful resources. The Transition Alliance of South Carolina. Many of you may have used that. So, I mean, if we have time, I'll share it, but just know that our friends at Task, awesome resources for teachers, awesome resources for parents. It's the second link, but there's also one called Pathways to the Future. It's pathwayswv.org. And if I was a parent, I would love this resource. Can you see the website, Sally, or is it still on? Okay, I'm so sorry, guys. Let me, here we go. Now you see it, right? Got the person with the diploma staring at you. Okay, so you can go on this. Awesome resource or something for parents, providers, and teachers and students. I'll just click on students, but it lists those things that we talked about in IDEA. It talks about career planning, education planning, independent living skills, self-determination, and work-based learning. So if you go to career planning, this is based out of West Virginia, so don't worry about this part of it. But there is an interest inventory survey where you can sign this up for your child or your student. You know, put your email in there, and when it goes to account type, just make sure you pick a candidate, and then you will see, maybe, let me go back to that. You will see a picture like this, where it'll say me or not me. And it tells them, do you like public speaking? And they click me if they like it. They click not me. It's got a real social media / I guess, we know we're in the phone generation. We're talking about cassette tapes earlier. They can do it faster than I can on their phones. But they start asking questions like that. It gives them a picture. It's awesome because they can see the picture and kind of relate to the question. But once they go through that test, it takes about 5 minutes to go through it. It starts listing out their strengths for certain jobs, some of their weaknesses. Then you can say, why do you want to know your weaknesses? The hardest job question you're going to get in an interview is, what is your greatest weakness? So it helps you word that in a very positive way. It shows them jobs that are available because it pings off of their IP address, and it gives them a lot of great assessment data. So you have evidence to why it selected that for you. They can search jobs with career names. They can browse careers by career cluster. So they click on the 16 career clusters we have, and it would show them all the jobs inside of there. There's a resume builder. Awesome thing. You click on it, and it like formats the resume for you. So, not like me, you're on Microsoft Word. It's like erasing half of your stuff. You're ready to throw your computer. It's line for line. It's easy to do. And it formats it for you. It's a great resource. There's some things like there's ONET. I think Sally might laugh about this. It can't be a transition thing without ONET being on it. That's just an interest inventory. And then it talks about military careers. So, where can you find that ASVAB recruiter? What jobs are available in the military? What scores do I have to get in the military? All of that's on there, because we do get that question sometimes for some of our students about joining the military. Another thing when it comes to education planning, there's the college scorecard. That's awesome. It shows you can click on this. It'll take you to every college and university inside of the United States of America. You click on the state you want to look at. It shows you the tuition. It shows you the acceptance rates. It shows you the acceptance scores. It shows you where it's at on a map. It shows you the programs. It shows you the enrollment. It shows you how to contact people if you have a disability. all of that stuff is on this website here where it says the college scorecard. Very easy to navigate. And I can tell you right now, me being the first person in my family to ever go to college, this would have been very helpful. Another thing that we have here is you can click on virtual college tours. You can select South Carolina and it will take you through a virtual tour on those South Carolina campuses. Don't worry about that one. That's options for our high school in West Virginia. National Center for College Students with Disabilities. Great resource. It's a federally funded national center, and it shows students who may have a disability or chronic health condition or mental or emotional illness, and you can read it right there. Some information on going to college. Is there scholarships for you? Who do I need to talk to when I go to college concerning my disability? All of that stuff is on this website. And then my favorite one, this is the one, everybody, if we had a DeLorean, we'd go back in the time machine. We wish we had this, is paying for school. If you remember anything, remember that pig with money in it. You click on that and you go down to Smart Scholar, which is at the bottom. It will show you every scholarship that is available right now in the United States of America. And I don't know if you all can see this. I just clicked on it. But if you go down here to the bottom, and it gives you the free link for FAFSA. Who remembers that nightmare? So it tells you the difference between grants and loans and work studies. I didn't know that stuff. Like I said, if you go down here to Smart Scholar, can you all see that, Sally? Or Smart Scholar? I'm no math wizard, but I know that's a lot of money. $88 million available right now in scholarships. And you can pick these from your ethnicity to characters. You can look at the states. I mean, there's all kinds of different things you can click on here, your major, where you live at, and it will help you find scholarships. So I can see Sally's like throwing her computer right now because she is mad that she did not have that resource in the future. And so am I after my student loan debt. Another one that's great for our students, because I know we're getting close on time here and I want to leave time for people to talk, but independent living skills, gcflearnfree.org. Awesome website, interactive, click on it. It's all virtual, shows students how to pay bills, how to find jobs in a newspaper, if that's even a thing anymore. I guess you can move your cassette tapes out of the way to find it, how to get around town, how to handle money all the way from change to using a debit card. Great resource, how to put a stamp on it. I mean, every student in America should be using these. Basically how to be an adult. That's how it teaches you how to be an adult right there. We got a list here for workplace and soft skills. Here's some of the soft skills you may want to work on. And then lastly, how to do your personal finances, how to make a budget. All that's on here. Managing your health. Like I hate going to the doctor because I hate pulling out my insurance card. I don't know what my family health history was. There's some things here that you can fill out for your student, especially if they're going to be independent, that has that information for them. And then there's some other things on here as well. But if you're a teacher, you go down to the teacher toolbox, and there's a lot of these are West Virginia things, but it kind of links this out for you in lesson plans on how to do these things. So I don't want to take all of our time, Sally. So I could talk forever on this stuff because I love it, but I'm going to make sure to give you guys some time to ask questions.
Thanks, Chris. That was awesome. I learned some new resources too. So I was writing down some notes myself. I have one question that I think comes up a lot for families is, when should parents and students start requesting support from outside agencies through the schools if the school doesn't automatically bring somebody in for their meetings?
So transition starts now federally. It's not this way. It's actually much older, but in South Carolina, transition starts at 13. So in South Carolina at 13, it is your right as a parent to start asking information. Now, let me say this. At 13, we are more in the exploratory stages of career. Like we don't want to start just applying. I mean, I guess you can't start applying for scholarships, right? But you can start exploring careers. Now, I've seen teachers in grade school that introduce careers and things like that. So, but 13 is when transition starts in South Carolina. Now, we start monitoring for it with the federal standard, which is 16. But we do, in South Carolina, it's at 13. So we do get those that are younger. It's supposed to be on that IEP. But 13 is when I would start talking and getting connected. And I love the people at South Carolina Voc Rehab. Love them. Jenny Gardner, Kendall Armstrong, you name them, great people. But just like we're having a huge teacher shortage right now, right? There's a lot of turnover in teachers. There's a lot of turnover in voc rehab counselors as well. So the quicker you can get connected with things like voc rehab, you just start getting that stuff out of the way. DDSN is a great resource. I found out all kinds of new information about DDSN that I had never even known about until like 2 months ago. So I just wanted, 13 is the answer for that one.
Perfect. Thanks. Are there any other questions from you guys in the last couple minutes we have?
And I don't care to stay over, Sally, because if this
Okay.
helps kids,
Okay.
make sure.
I see a thank you in the chat and said these were great resources.
Did anybody answer my crazy picture question?
You did have one answer to that. Someone said they were 2. They're trying to nail down the credential requirements and the work hours they need to complete. And need to know more about transitioning students to work after graduation. So hopefully you answered some of those questions. We just talked specifically about the credential, but yeah.
But you got the right guy. I can help you with the credential questions because I work with Dr. Kim Watkins, who is a very dear friend of mine. She is our South Carolina credential expert. I don't care to answer those questions, but she is actually the lead for that. So Sally and I can get you in contact with her, but those hours to be considered career ready in South Carolina, I know this is like an accountability thing. You got to have 40 work-based learning hours with a train agreement signed by a company. That'll get them career ready, but that is a little bit different in the credential because if you are a South Carolina high school credential or state employability credential student and you complete all the requirements, which is much more than 40 on the work-based learning hours, you are automatically deemed career ready. So that was a change that Kim and I advocated for and we were able to get. So those students are now career ready. In the past, they were not considered career ready. Now they are. They can log them into Power School, which is awesome for our kids. Now, we always say diploma first, right? Don't just start putting kids on the South Carolina high school credential because that is not a high school diploma. That is a credential. So we always want to go diploma first, but for some of our students, it absolutely is the best pathway, and we can get more details for that, Sally.
Yeah, perfect. That was, I'm looking to make sure I didn't miss any. That was the only additional question in the chat. But lots of thank yous for the resources, and we will be sending out. Chris will send me the presentation, and we'll get that out to you guys who are on today, so that you have the clickable links that he has to the different resources that he showed you and mentioned. So
awesome. Oh, I think we had one more question. Something about it just popped in, I think.
Yeah. What if the student gets the diploma but doesn't know how to count money? What is your suggestion?
Just for clarification, a high school diploma?
I'm going to assume so. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, first of all, I would really hope that we would address counting money if that student is on a diploma track. There is some, and I'm sitting on this committee right now, we are adding in some financial literacy courses that are going to be required in South Carolina. So that would address the counting of money. But if for some reason that would happen, I would utilize first of all, if your student is still in school, bring it up to the IEP team. That's totally appropriate. You can say, we want to work on post-secondary goals. I know that my child or whoever, I don't care who it is, the student is unable to count money. I would like to see this addressed, and then they can work on that in the school. And if you would like to work on it with the student yourself, whoever the student may be to you, then you can utilize that resource I just gave you at pathwayswv.org. And if you go to the gcflearnfree.org link on that on independent living, there is a section there that teaches students how to count change, how to use a vending machine, how to use a cash register, how to use a debit card. All of that is on there. Now, I will say this. It seems like the more digital we get, this is like not just for students with disabilities. Everybody has been to McDonald's in a grocery store. A lot of that is digitally, and it's all the students. They utilize that digital cash register so much, and it automatically tells them how to give change. I know when we were all growing up, we had to learn how to give change because our cash registers didn't work that way. We were sitting there counting money all the time, and a lot of people don't even use cash anymore. Everybody uses a card; they just swipe that sucker. But it's a skill that all of our students could work on. So it doesn't matter if it's a student with a disability. It's on that website to work with them on.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Mhm.
And we will, yeah, we'll share out that link for the pathways with the presentation when it comes out. So
Sally, I would like to say one more thing before we wrap up. I get the pleasure to work with all of our school districts. There's not a number of amount of teachers that I could tell you how much love students, want to see students do the right things every day. And of course, those teachers are never celebrated. You only hear about the bad things, it seems like. But there are so many of our teachers who wear so many different hats, and they care about your students and they care about your kids. And they try to do the right things. And there's not just one student, they're working with hundreds of students. So I just want to give a shout out to them. I want to give a shout out to you guys as parents, right? I'm a parent. I don't care who your child is. It's like there's no manual on that, right? Every child I have two children and they're totally different. So I know at times things can be, we're picture one or two. But thank you guys as parents for logging on. I mean, this is awesome to share things with families and connect. And I'm really excited with the way that the Department of Ed is moving with family engagement for all parents involved and all families involved going forward. And lastly, I appreciate Family Connections for linking us together. They're a great organization. I know Sally, she's awesome. And we are trying to work on those things. And if things are not perfect, we know that, and we as long as we're moving in the right direction, involving more families. And of course, Sally also has Dr. Lynette Cox, who I love dearly. She is our ombudsman at the Office of Special Ed Services, and she fields more specific questions that do relate to your child or your student. She can field those questions. It's just so hard. I'm trying to give you the big view because I'm not in that IEP. I don't see that meeting. I'm not part of the IEP team. I don't see the IEP. I don't know necessarily specifically for that student or the teachers that work with that student. But if you want to talk to Dr. Lynette Cox, I'm sure Sally can obviously get you in contact with them as well. But we are always here at the Office of Special Ed and at the Department of Education in general to serve students. That's why we got into this business. So just want to appreciate you guys, appreciate our teachers, and appreciate Family Connections.
I love that, Chris. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and hang out with us and have this chat and share the information and the resources. And we will absolutely get it out to families. And I'm excited that we can keep doing things like this so that we can keep learning new resources as they come out.
That's it. See, we're going to change y'all's names from partners to family. You guys aren't partners anymore. You're all family to us. So
I love that. I love it.
Right. Thank you all.
Guys so
good
much.
to see everybody.
Y'all have a good one.